with a major WWE star detailing health issues and more. This is Pro Wrestling Central. My name is John, and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Recalling his reaction to AEW not renewing his contract, Bronson said this to Scott's Scoops. "I did really see this coming, and when the person from the office, I won't name his name, had called me while I was driving to Wrestling Open, he's like, 'Hey, how you doing?' I'm like, 'Great.' He's like, 'Hey, I just want to say I'm so proud of you for what you're doing, but we just, I wanted to let you know your contract's up this week and we're not going to renew.' I had laughed on the other end of the phone and I was like, 'Yeah, I figured, and we shared a laugh. And then the rest of the phone call was very uplifting. It's like, all good vibes, man. And I had even said to them to make sure everyone knows it's no hard feelings. Things happen the way they did, but man, it's a big company. It's a really big company." Speaking about the possibility of AEW World Champion Jon Moxley returning to WWE, Karrion Kross told the Battleground podcast, "I want Jon to be happy wherever he is, but I hope one day he does come back to WWE because I think it would be insane. I think a lot of people think this, I would love to compete with him here so we can finish what we started. That's what I'll say." When it comes to an AEW star potentially leaving the company soon, Ringside News wrote that Danhausen's return at Ring of Honor Final Battle was supposed to be a fresh start, but it may have just been a farewell. After a surprise appearance in late 2024, the fan favorite hasn't been seen on AEW or ROH programming since, and now his contract is almost up. According to Fightful Select, Danhausen's current deal is set to expire in July, unless AEW chooses to extend it due to injury time. But that's looking unlikely. Despite being told he'd likely be worked back into creative following Final Battle, no plans ever materialized. Sources say Danhausen was welcomed warmly backstage during his Final Battle return and believed he'd be part of things moving forward. But once the show was over, communication dried up. After following up with the company, he was told he wasn't being brought back to TV that week, and things never progressed from there. "We've not heard of any plans for Danhausen on TV," Fightful reported. "There's no word yet on whether AEW intends to offer a new deal or simply let the contract expire. But with Danhausen off television for months, the writing might already be on the wall. Danhausen might have returned with a curse, but now it looks like he's the one getting ghosted. After months of radio silence and no creative direction, the clock is ticking, and July's not far off. If AEW doesn't act soon, they might lose one of their most unique personalities without even saying goodbye." Touching on the idea that very few pro wrestlers actually draw for a promotion, Cody Rhodes noted on his "What Do You Want to Talk About" podcast, "This is an unpopular thing to share, but I'll share it. If you look at a roster sheet in any company, you'd be surprised at the percentage that actually, and I'll use the term, earn or draw for a company. You'd think it's a lot more, and then you look and it's a small percentage. Now, it doesn't mean people won't. It doesn't mean people aren't getting there. It doesn't mean context makes it so that a few times they do, but there's a small percentage. And I don't know if the world knows, and I'm sure they're finding out in real time. What Rhea Ripley does, X's and O's wise, she's very, very inspiring. She's also one who makes me want to compete, not in a stab you in the back type of way, but like, let's go. You're cruising? Cool. I want to be on your level. Let's go." Every time she's on the screen, it's those moments of like, geez, man, what a star. What a star. During that same interview, Cody Rhodes was apologetic about joining the Bullet Club in New Japan, as Damian Priest responded, "Well, there's an apologize, you say no. It's not your fault that someone wants to give you something. I think some people may have taken it a certain way, but most of us, when you came in and they put you with the Bullet Club, it's like, well, what are you going to do? Say no? If anybody was upset, it was mainly because they wanted to be in that spot anyway." Rhodes replied, "You know what I've come to realize about the Bullet Club, and I talk with AJ Styles, I talk with Finn Balor about this all the time. Bullet Club was so cool when Finn Balor was doing it, so cool when AJ Styles was doing it, but they weren't printing money. It wasn't the money-making enterprise. I joined and it did start making money. However, it was the least cool thing ever, and I realized I was the sold out, the commercial Bullet, and that's why I leaned into it a little at the end. So when I look at the leaders of the Bullet Club, I don't mind when people get into these heated arguments over how awful I was for it, because, well, we were doing well. We were in places that were sometimes empty, but yeah, no, I know I was a pretty poor Giving information on CM Punk's match with John Cena at Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia, Dave Meltzer reported on Wrestling Observer Radio he could not go to Saudi Arabia at Night of Champions if he really wanted to not go. He was going months ago. I had already asked about that a couple of months ago when the show was first talked about, and he was in the original promo package. And then he was taken out of the promo package, and I asked, am I supposed to see when Seth Rollins replaced him in that promo package that he's not going? And it's like, nope, he's going. So it's been known he's going for months, probably all along. I don't know if he ever voiced any issues with going at any point since he signed, but he hasn't in months. I know that. Providing an update on a WWE draft this year, Ringside News wrote that WWE may be shaking up tradition with this year's draft, and it could have everything to do with fall television. According to a new report from Bodyslam.net's Corey Hayes and Viper, the 2025 WWE draft is likely getting pushed to later in the year instead of its usual spring slot after WrestleMania. The company is reportedly eyeing a new draft date right after SummerSlam, which takes place August 2nd to 3rd. That timing would align the draft with WWE's annual season premiere episodes in September, giving both Raw and SmackDown a fresh coat of paint for the fall lineup. The report laid it out clearly. The last I heard about the WWE draft was that they had been considering doing it post SummerSlam, most likely as a tie-in to the season premiere episodes in September. Moving the draft gives WWE time to wrap up current storylines that have stretched into the summer months. It also allows recent NXT call-ups and returning talent to find their groove before any major roster changes are finalized. This would indicate that WWE hasn't had much of a need to reshuffle the rosters lately, which explains the delay, but a fall draft would serve as a clean reset button before WWE's biggest TV period of the year. If WWE really is pushing the draft to the fall, it could be a smart move, especially with so many storylines peaking in the summer, but delaying the shakeup might also leave some superstars stuck in limbo a little longer. Either way, this could set the stage for some major surprises once the post-SummerSlam dust settles. Revealing a long-term issue he had with his gut, The Rock told Dr. Mark Hyman, so probably going on a couple of years now, and I was having some gut issues, and at that time, you and I didn't know each other, and we have a common friend. We have a lot of common friends, come to find out, but we have a common friend in Ari Emanuel, and I was talking to Ari at the end of 2023, and we were just talking about our stuff. He's been a longtime business partner of mine, been my lead agent for years and years, decades, and I was talking to him about my gut, and I said, man, I got this gut issue, and he's like, what's going on? I said, I've seen doctors and I can't quite nail it. I can't quite fix it. It's in my digestion. I feel great, and that's the odd thing, but I just can't crack it. And he said, I'm going to introduce you to a friend of mine. His name is Dr. Mark Hyman. I'm going to connect you. And as you know, as anyone who knows Ari knows, these conversations last 30 seconds. So this was a 5-minute call I had with him, which is a long time. And so he connected you and I via text, and then you and I spoke. I'll never forget when I talked to you. It was a Zoom, and you had said, hey, just curious, are you familiar with who I am and what I do? I said, not one bit. And you said, do you know anything about functional medicine? I said, well, I've heard about it a little bit. I said, tell me a little bit about it. And you said, this is my specialty. This is what I do. And you said very succinctly, I'm not going to treat your symptoms. I'm going to go deeper than that and treat the root cause of what's going on. And I said, I love that. And that speaks to some of the challenges I've had in my own health journey in the past with some doctors. doctors, not indicting any doctors, but just the way they operate. It's how they're trained. But I found I was so challenged with them, trying to get to the root cause of this problem and a few others. Dr. Hyman then said, and I remember you asked, how about my gut? And I said, well, that's what I specialize in. And then I said, we're going to do a deep dive, blood panel, stool test, and we'll find out what's going on. Johnson continued, that was at the beginning of 2024, and I was just getting ready to launch into what would become a 9-month workload for me, non-stop work, and I was thinking, holy how am I going to get through this with my gut issues? I'm not digesting properly. And I would say probably 6 to 8 weeks later, you had me on the right track. Things started to come around, started to recalibrate. Dr. Hyman added, you had taken an antibiotic for something, 2 rounds of antibiotics, and then your gut changed. But regular doctors don't pay attention to that. Through detective work, taking your history, we realized that was the moment things changed. You probably killed off the good guys in your gut. We found in your stool test you were missing Akkermansia, a very important bacteria that coats the lining of your intestine and protects you from inflammation and leaky gut. So we basically rehabbed your gut, gave you probiotics and plant compounds, pomegranate, green tea, cranberry to help rebuild it, and we made you this amazing gut health shake with 10+ ingredients personalized for you. And this was your pro wrestling news update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all later.